Look around you. In every room, in every conversation, in every relationship, there is a silent, invisible game being played. It is the game of power. Most people are unaware they are even playing. They move through life like pieces on a chessboard, pushed and pulled by forces they cannot see and do not understand. Then there are the others, the players, the ones who understand the unspoken rules. They don't have to be the loudest, the strongest, or the most prominent. In fact, they are often the quietest. They are the masters of perception, the architects of desire, the puppeteers who pull the invisible strings of the human psyche. For centuries, this knowledge was a closely guarded secret, whispered in the courts of kings and the back rooms of power. Books on the subject were deemed dangerous, immoral, forbidden. They were condemned because they told an uncomfortable truth, that influence is a science, and human emotion is a vulnerability that can be systematically exploited. This video is your entry into that forbidden library. We are not here to talk about what is nice or fair. We are here to talk about what works. We will dissect 5 core principles of psychological manipulation, drawing from the timeless wisdom of strategists and seducers. A critical warning before we proceed. This knowledge is a double-edged sword. It can be used to defend yourself, to see the game for what it is, and to ensure you are never again a pawn. But it can also be used to control, to dominate, and to harm. The purpose of this masterclass is to arm you with understanding, not to create monsters. How you use this knowledge will define your character. Understand the darkness so you are never consumed by it. Now, let's begin the shadow play. Principle number 1, the mirror and the void. A master manipulator never reveals their true self. To do so is to give their opponent ammunition. Instead, they become a perfect mirror. This is the core principle of seduction and influence. Here is how it is done. When you meet someone, you do not talk about yourself. You make the entire interaction about them. You ask probing questions about their hopes, their dreams, but most importantly, their insecurities and their childhood dissatisfactions. You listen with an intensity that borders on worship. You become a blank slate, a void, onto which they can project their deepest fantasies. If they are a rebel, you reflect their disdain for authority. If they are a wounded artist, you reflect their belief that the world doesn't understand them. You don't just mimic their body language, you mimic their value system. You become the one person in the world who finally gets them. Here is why it works. People are not in love with you. They are in love with themselves. The deepest human craving is to be understood and validated. By becoming a mirror, you create an intoxicating illusion. The target feels a profound, almost spiritual connection, not realizing they are simply falling in love with a reflection of their own ego. Once this bond is forged, they will do anything to protect it, and by extension, to please you. You have become their favorite drug. Principle number 2, the currency of obligation. Kindness is a weapon. Generosity is a strategy. The amateur gives freely. The master gives strategically, creating invisible chains of debt. This is the law of calculated reciprocity. Here is how it is done. You do favors for people before they ask. You give them gifts, offer them help, and provide them with support that seems to come from a place of pure altruism. You are always the one doing more, the one who is so incredibly giving. But every gift, every favor, is an entry in a psychological ledger that only you can see. You are not giving, you are investing. You are building up a massive surplus of social debt. Then, when the time is right, when you need something far greater than anything you have given, you make your move. It won't even feel like a demand. You will simply express a need, and the target, weighed down by the immense psychological burden of your kindness, will feel an overwhelming compulsion to repay you. To refuse would be to brand themselves as a horrible, ungrateful person. Here is why it works. Society is built on the rule of reciprocity. We are hardwired to feel uncomfortable when we are indebted to others. The manipulator exploits this by creating a one-sided flow of generosity. The target is lulled into a false sense of security by the gifts, never realizing that each one tightens an invisible chain around their neck. When the chain is pulled, they have no choice but to comply. Principle number 3: the controlled chaos. Stability breeds complacency. A master of power knows that to be seen as a savior, there must first be a crisis. If no crisis exists, you manufacture one. This is the principle of problem, reaction, solution. Here is how it is done. You subtly create a problem. You might spread a rumor that causes insecurity within a team. You might accidentally delete a file, causing a panic. You might point out a flaw in a plan that no one else had noticed, creating doubt and fear. The problem must be big enough to cause anxiety, but small enough for you to solve. As people react with fear and confusion, you remain calm. You are the island of stability in the storm you created. Then you step forward with the solution you had prepared all along. You find the backup file. You quell the rumor. You present the brilliant fix to the flaw you discovered. Here is why it works. In times of chaos, people do not look for the most competent leader, they look for the most decisive one. By creating and then solving a problem, you position yourself as a figure of strength, wisdom, and control. You become indispensable. People will grant you immense power and loyalty, grateful to you for saving them from the very fire you secretly started. Principle number 4: the slow poison of doubt. A person's confidence is their fortress. You do not need to launch a full frontal assault. A master manipulator knows that a fortress is best taken down from the inside, one stone at a time. This is the art of weaponized insecurity. Here is how it is done. This is a long game. It is done through 1,000 tiny cuts. You use backhanded compliments. That's a great presentation. I'm surprised you pulled it off. You subtly question their memory. Are you sure that's how it happened? I remember it differently. You compare them unfavorably to others, disguised as a joke. You target their deepest insecurities, their intelligence, their appearance, their competence. Each comment is a drop of slow-acting poison. It's deniable. If they confront you, you simply say, "What? I was just kidding. You're being too sensitive." This is gaslighting's more insidious cousin. You're not just denying an event, you're slowly eroding their entire sense of self-worth. Here is why it works. Confidence is a fragile ecosystem. By constantly introducing doubt, you destabilize it. The target begins to second-guess themselves, to believe they are flawed, and to see you as the only one who is honest enough to tell them the truth. Their self-esteem plummets, and they become more and more dependent on your validation. A person with no confidence is easy to control. They will not challenge you because they no longer believe they have the right.
Principle number 5. The cult of one. A person with a strong support network is difficult to control. They have outside perspectives and sources of strength. The ultimate act of manipulation is to sever those ties and make yourself their entire world. This is the principle of strategic isolation. Here is how it is done. You position yourself as the only person who truly understands them. Everyone else, their friends, their family, is painted as jealous, misguided, or a negative influence. You create an us against the world narrative. It sounds like this. Your friends don't really support you. Did you see the way they looked at you? Or, your family just wants to hold you back. They don't see your true potential like I do. You subtly engineer conflicts between the target and their loved ones. You monopolize their time, leaving them with less and less energy for others. Over time, their support network withers, not from a dramatic fight, but from quiet neglect. Here is why it works. The fear of abandonment is one of the most primal human fears. By isolating the target, you become their sole source of emotional and psychological support. Their reality is shaped entirely by you. They become terrified of losing you, because to lose you would be to lose everything. At this point, your control is nearly absolute. These are the rules of the shadow play: to mirror desire, to create debt, to control chaos, to poison confidence, and to isolate. Seeing the world through this lens is a heavy burden. It reveals the gears and levers behind so much of what we call human interaction. It can make one cynical. But it is better to be a cynic than a fool. Remember the warning from the beginning. This knowledge is power, and power is a test of character. Now that you can see the strings, you have a choice. You can learn to spot the puppeteers in your own life and cut yourself free. You can protect those you care about from falling into these traps. Or you can pick up the strings yourself. The game is always being played. The only question is whether you are a player or a piece. The choice is yours.